All right, here we are on a Friday night, late night happy hour, late night video pod, Cofield and Company. We got some cool guests tonight. Cokin's become a regular on Fridays. We're going to talk to Von Tobel a little later on, so we get the young and the seasoned takes on, I don't want to call Dave old, on college football and NFL this weekend. And Caleb Herring is with us, although he may have chosen just to go audio. We'll see. He's in a hotel room somewhere in Southern California. Normally, when you go to cover San Diego State and UNLV, the trip to San Diego is awesome, but they're playing the game in Carson, California, which I don't know if that's as nice as San Diego. My recollection of Carson was no, it was not as nice as San Diego.
I don't think there's any brigantines in Carson.
Caleb, did you get to, can you hear us? You good? Oh, he's having to make adjustments, so he's off, he's on. Oh, no, I think he lost the sound. We were just talking like a minute ago. Caleb, you good? He's going to figure it out. I don't think he can hear us. Live radio, video. This is what happens sometimes.
I just totally.
Oh, there you are.
Oh, there we go.
We can hear you, Caleb. We can hear you. You're good.
You got a hot mic. Don't say any. Don't do a Tom Brenneman.
Please, no racial slurs. Come on. Wouldn't that be dynamite? Caleb out of nowhere is like, these crackers. I'm like, what? By the way, that is a total joke. Caleb's like one of the nicest guys I know that I get a chance to work with. He's a good dude.
Okay.
Caleb, you good now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I don't know what happened. I just dropped out. I couldn't hear anything.
I don't know. We were worried about live video and you going, Tom Brenneman, Troy Aikman. I was like, please do not. Caleb, do not drop a racial slur, Be careful.
I'm so glad. I joked about going out on a hot mic and being what it would be like for me, like what I would say that would get me banned by social media, but I avoided it there. I'm glad I didn't say anything ridiculous.
All right, well, so what was the trip like? Because we're doing all the social distancing thing, and UNLV's hitting the road for the first time, and there's like all this intensity about making sure that guys are safe and everyone gets to the game tomorrow in good shape, and there's no coronavirus risk.
Yeah, it was comforting for me, actually. UNLV's done a lot as far as going the extra mile to make sure nobody has COVID. They've kind of done their own version of a bubble if they can. I know the players and coaching staff that are around each other every day are testing 3 days a week. We, as the travel team, the media, I guess, only tested the day before, so we all got our COVID testing results this morning. So we were clear to make the trip, and essentially everybody that got on the plane had to have a negative test, basically, before even being allowed to make a trip. So that was cool, working with the people at Quest Diagnostics, however they've worked it out with UNLV to be able to get these rapid results testing was pretty cool. It's pretty cool to be involved with it for the first time as far as seeing one of these programs implement whatever COVID protocol they had to do to get a road game going. So that was cool from that aspect. And then, you see, you've been on the road with UNLV football sometimes. Last season, we get into these road games, being able to go out and experience a new town and go out to eat with the crew, the media crew, and some other staff members around the organization. It's usually the norm for travel days, but this year it's different. I mean, they've got us pretty much quarantined at these hotels. We got here and we've pretty much been at the hotel since we got here earlier this afternoon. So a little different experience this time around, but obviously understandable with all the crap that's going on with COVID and things like that. Make sure the players stay safe and not wanting to be the guy that messes it up. You don't want to be the one that pops positive. But yeah, the university's done a great job of implementing some sort of procedure to put the minds of families everywhere at ease that they're taking COVID seriously and trying to protect the players.
How much of a distraction is it for the coaching staff and the players who haven't gone through this before? At least for the teams that have played several weeks now, I guess they're kind of used to the routine. But first time around, especially on the road, is it a distraction at all?
I think it's actually not, because in my experience with football and the way these road trips go, you want to kind of have a bubble, if you will, for your players and your team. It's kind of cool to be able to isolate yourselves. And really focus in on one thing, and that's the players and coaches really just want to focus on the game, and this that's that's pretty much done when everybody's together. So for them, I think you look at the season, you're already kind of in a bubble. I mean, like when it's season time, it's time to focus on football. There's not time for many other distractions. And I think COVID, especially when it comes to, interacting with the media, I think COVID has provided some sort of excuse, I guess, to not interact with the media, to not get distracted by other things. It's the business of football. There's no guests allowed to come to the hotels. And I know, being from Southern California, coming to San Diego State for a game for me was a time to reconnect with some family here in Southern California. But like I said, with no guests being allowed at the hotel on road trips, you don't have to worry about that when you're going across the country as a coach. You just focus in on the game plan. So I think it may be kind of the opposite effect, inadvertently, obviously, but with this bubble mentality, coaches are really focused in on just football with their guys and not anything else, like dealing with the media or family members wanting ticket requests and things like that throughout the week.
So this is a weird situation because I know if I were on the plane, because I'm a psycho, I would start looking around and being like, I'd count like who's here, who's not. Like we want to find out. There were like 10 to 12 guys who I think are going to be contributors if they're part of this season, who are not on the depth chart on Monday. I'm assuming that you have sort of an information embargo in place. I don't know if they talked to you about it, but how are you kind of handling prep here? Because there were a lot of players missing, and we want to get to the starting quarterback thing. We're all going to give our opinion on who should be the starting quarterback, but what's the deal with some of the players missing? Like, is there some clarity? Did they tell you who may have opted out of the season, who may have been left behind because of COVID? Like, what the hell's going on?
No, I think that is a disadvantage for us in the media. Is we really don't know. There is this kind of this veil that we can't go beyond because we can't interact with the players. Not like you said, for the most part, you're trying to figure out on the airplane who's here, who's not coming, who's not even here. That would be an obvious indicator that this guy's, obviously dealing with something. He's not even making a trip. But I don't think it's really going to be one of those things you have to wait to find out a game day. And I think there's whatever the conference guidelines are as far as revealing what the reasons are for somebody being injured or on the injury report have changed. And I think coaches are taking advantage of it and really keeping the media in the dark. So we don't have a clear-cut idea of why these key players are missing from the depth chart. And even now I'm traveling with the team and I'm basically zero contact with the team. I mean, there's no mingling in the lobbies like there usually is. There's no opportunities to gain additional insight from being around the guys. We're pretty much confined to our rooms and for the most part so we don't really get the inside scoop either. We're going to find out the exact reasons as they unfold on Saturday in front of us. But that's a disadvantage of this for the media angle. We really have limited access to prepare for and really dissect what we think the game will look like because we just don't have any idea who's going to be available at kickoff. And this might be something that changes week to week, but I could see this being the situation for the rest of the season where we really don't have a lock on what the actual depth chart would look like. Maybe more so this week. I think it's more of a secret and we'll have a better idea as things go forward, but it'll be constantly evolving as far as how we're going to prepare for each week and the roster looking different for every game. But it's been a headache this first week. I'll tell you that much, trying to prepare for whatever the roster may be. And so I can't imagine other teams trying to prep for, I mean, having Randall Grimes on the field, for instance, it changes things immensely for an offense and especially for a defense game playing against him. The guy had 121 yards last year against San Diego State as a freshman. So, I mean, it's or not as a freshman, as with his first start against San Diego State. So, I mean, him being on the field is a big time thing, and we'll find out if he's just not going to be available for the entirety of the season, or if it's just a first week of the season type thing. But we'll see. Come Saturday, we'll see really what the Rebels have to offer on the roster and how the roster changes as the year goes on.
Okay, I'm going to back Arroyo a little bit because, yes, first and foremost, I'm a media guy, but I'm going to look at it as if I were a football coach. I'll say one thing I thought that was slightly alarming about the last staff, and I only covered the team for a couple of years, as a sideline reporter. I was actually surprised how much chatter there was in between games I thought the football program would be a lot more buttoned up. Like I can tell you from covering TJ Otzelberger, that thing's buttoned up. Like there ain't a lot of information leaking out. And I thought the last regime, and I like Tony Sanchez a lot, and it actually benefited us because the staff did talk. But I think if I were running a football program, maybe what Arroyo is doing and maybe doing in the future is probably the way to do it.
Yeah, I think when you look across the league or across the country, really, you think about the way Nick Saban has dealt with the media, and as you said, not to compare UNLV to Alabama, of course, but there's something to be said about keep running a tight ship, and I think you straddle the line a bit, and I think you have to dance that dance as a head coach and kind of what you want as far as media relations and how much about your program you want to be known. And I think if you listen to Coach's show this past Wednesday, he talked a little bit about that, about how the media sometimes tips your hand to your opponent. I know for me, obviously, when preparing for a game, I look at the opposing team's media guys or the opposing team's media and their sports radio and what they're saying about the team, try to get a feel for, what to expect. And that's kind of been the case this year. You can San Diego State trying to look at what their media says about them to kind of get a tip on what they're going to be about. So I think Coach Roy does have an awareness that maybe having a tight ship can be a benefit. And I think he's one of those coaches who maybe he's been around the block. I mean, you heard his resume and where he's been. It didn't start at Oregon, and where he's been. He's learned a lot about the game and the way this coaching thing works. I think his strategy, his mindset around the media has been shaped by what it is. I think he's definitely taking advantage of COVID and the secrecy he's allowed to have. But like you said, running that tight ship, it puts out a lot of small fires when you can control the narrative within your team, within the locker room, and not have different media swirlings going around that maybe cause distraction. So I think he definitely is aware, and he's playing the thing the way he feels right. And we'll see how different it is in a non-COVID impacted world, and if that's still the same, or if he's willing to open up more about roster decisions and things like that. But as of right now, it's a tight ship, and we'll see if it benefits. So we're riding along with the tight ship here.
It seems like, that might be one of the benefits of him coming out of a really, really big time program. He's used to all kinds of media questions and infiltration or whatever you want to call it, knows how to deal with it. And in a smaller fishbowl like Las Vegas, that should be a cinch for him to run things the way he wants to run them.
Yeah, and I think he doesn't have this is something I thought about coming into this season. He doesn't have the burden of needing to get public support. And it's weird to say that because that's kind of been one of the recurring themes for UNLV football, especially where community support and funding, for instance, are things that are vital. So you had to kind of get at the forefront and kind of campaign for the school and be willing to expose yourself so that people would want to support the program. And I think if you look back at Tony Sanchez and the difference, he had to kind of campaign on behalf of the university. He was more public with his speaking and more available. So, and because of that, you can say he got things done like the finance.
He got the facility done, right?
Yeah.
He got the facility done to the tune of $35 to $40 million. So, like, no one should ever, from a legacy standpoint, you can critique Tony Sanchez as a game manager and overall as a coach, but the complete package, he got the football facility done. That's freaking massive. So let's cut to the chase. I don't think you know who the starting quarterback is, but do you have any leans on who it might be, and who should it be against San Diego State?
No, I have no idea. So I have not been notified under the table with some secret envelope that the winner is Kenny Noblat or anything like that. But if I had to guess, and I would say based on some of the things that Coach Roy has said as far as what he's critiquing, I would say I would lean towards Kenny Noblat. And I would say that just based on the fact that he's had experience with this group of guys. He's been a leader on this team before. So he may exude some confidence that maybe comes off and he's able to perform better in these last 4 weeks of on the field practice. But that would be my guess. I can't. It's hard even for me to say that because looking at Justin Rogers and the physical specimen that he is, and he just looks the part. I think he passes the eye test better than anybody that UNLV's had at quarterback in quite some time. So, so it's tough to say. And like we don't have access to practice, so I can't really say. I'm saying this based on who completed more passes or who looks better behind center. It's just kind of a gut feeling. And my first time really being able to critique these two or these three really when we throw Max Gilliam in there. It's going to be my first time seeing him on Saturday as well. And Coach Roy even mentioned that Saturday is going to be part of the evaluation process. I'm not sure if that included the quarterback position specifically, but I think this is my first time being on the team. As of now, I would lean towards Kenyon Oblak just because he's been here before with this program, with this group of guys, and that maybe that chemistry and that assertiveness as a leadership standpoint maybe gives him an edge slightly to get the start. But it's really a crapshoot. And this is one of those things, like you said, with the media not being able to access practice and not able to access anything going on really throughout this pandemic style practicing is working in his favor, because San Diego State's going through the same exact thing, trying to figure out who's going to be the quarterback and who they should prepare for. So he's probably going to play this as close as he can to the vest, and we won't know until it's time for kickoff who the starting quarterback is.
Well, the good thing is it's, not a lot of expectations for the first game, so maybe they can do a little experimenting. The game that matters more, and I'm not saying tomorrow's game doesn't matter, but the game that matters more is next week with at least a few fans, a couple of thousand fans in the stands, first ever fans to be in Allegiant, and it's Reno coming in, obviously a huge rivalry game. And I was listening to some chatter out of Reno a couple of days ago. They're already looking ahead to next week's game. Not that they're diminishing the importance of their opener against Wyoming, but they're already putting in some game planning for next week's game against the Rebels. So this is kind of it's not an exhibition game, obviously, but it kind of is, because next week's game realistically is more important.
Yeah, I think if you really look at where UNLV is, you're right to say that. I think, like Coach, I think is even aware of it, that this is going to be some sort of an evaluation, because they just haven't had much reps together as a team even to know what they got, I think, between the lines. So, yeah, this game is really going to be a feel out here for the Rebels. But next week, like you said, Reno has some payback in mind. I mean, Coach Arroyo wasn't here for it, but they got beat at home. And that's – I mean, if you've played in the rugby, you've been around it, you know how important it is to keep the cannon whatever respective color you want. And right now it's red, and Reno's going to be focused early on getting it back blue. And they're going to be the first team to play in Allegiant Stadium. They love to start the Rebels off with a loss at home in Allegiant Stadium. They're brand new. You got to think about it. Being from Reno, if you're playing with Reno, you got to be just jealous of UNLV. The things that they've gotten over the past couple of seasons in the Fertitta Complex and Allegiant Stadium, you got to feel like they're the favorite in Nevada, if there's a such thing. And they're getting all this attention and the spotlight with the Raiders being in town. And I mean, if you were a Nevada-born kid and you picked Reno over UNLV, you got to be kicking yourself going, man, I could have been, wearing those nice uniforms or playing in that stadium or things like that. But they're going to come to town on Halloween and try to kick UNLV's butt. And I think it's not a surprise that they're already looking ahead to that game. And it's always marked on both teams' calendars as far as we know when the Cannon game is. So, yeah, definitely next week is probably the more serious gauge of how good UNLV can be and really the true start of, I think, Arroyo's tenure. I guess there's never a free game. Every game counts if they're keeping score. But I definitely think that this game is truly more of an exhibition and more of a measuring stick of what they actually have on the field. We'll see what they put together, but that Reno game is always going to be an important one for UNLV fans.
What's your pick for the game tomorrow?
I picked San Diego State. I think there's just more there that they have. There's the culture already set. I know they have a new head coach, Brady Hoke, as well, but he's been around Rocky long, so I don't think much will change from San Diego State, especially from a defensive standpoint. So I just think San Diego State knows who they are, and it's going to be hard for UNLV to figure it out as they go against a team like San Diego State, who's picked to finish at the top of the conference again this year, and they've been at the top of the conference pretty much since I can remember. So it's a tough opening, but I think San Diego State gets it done. And
By?
Who knows?
How much?
Lad.
I'll ask you: will it be inside of 2 touchdowns? Can they compete? The last 2 years have been really, really close. They beat them 2 years ago, and they very easily could have won the game last year. They made a lot of mistakes. They had a broken play where Ethan Didow from Green Valley scored from like 47 yards, and then they had the El Doinko at the end of the game as they missed a 43-yarder off the upright. You know what I think? And here's my honest assessment. I think talent-wise, I have said this and this is with the full complement of the roster and with what we anticipate the Rebels are. I think the talent-wise, these within 2 touchdowns of anybody in the conference right now. I think just talent-wise, especially with the returning offensive line that they have, even though they got a freshman starting up front. I think the amount of veteran leadership they have on the offensive line, the skill positions that they could potentially have, I think they can compete in the conference. I'll say that. But there's some blows to that depth early without Grimes, without McCoskey. Those names, without your Techman on defense and Chad Magyar, these names that I thought would contribute pretty heavily, I think do take it there. I don't know if I'm going to say a 2-touchdown favorite because there is the unknown X factor of maybe they put something together, maybe they click and they gel early. But it's tough to say a 2-touchdown favorite or underdog rather for UNLV this early in season without really knowing what the product is. And as maybe I sound like a homer, but I just don't want to concede that this team is going to be a 2-touchdown underdog coming off the bat like this. So I think the spread is 15 or so. I think it was 15 or 16 or something like that. If it's that high, I think I'd look for UNLV to cover that, and it could be just the homer and me talking, but we'll find out on Saturday. I guess we'll all find out together what UNLV really has and if they can really compete right now. We're going to let Caleb go here in a second, but someone was asking earlier, are you wearing a law enforcement T-shirt? I am, actually. This is a law enforcement T-shirt. I am a supporter of law enforcement, obviously. I work in law enforcement, so this is one of the shirts that it was actually for a fundraiser that we did a couple years back for cancer within the department. So we had the opportunity to buy some T-shirts in support of that cause. Actually, we had some law enforcement officers in the Valley that were affected by cancer and unfortunately since have lost their battle with cancer, members of the law enforcement family. So every now and then, I wear this T-shirt. It's kind of my pajama get up, but I am wearing a law enforcement T-shirt, and I do, if anybody was questioning, I do support law enforcement, especially in our local Las Vegas area. They do a great job protecting and serving, and I'm proud to be a part of that fraternity. So yeah, it's a law enforcement shirt. All right, Caleb. Off guard with that? No, not at all. No, someone just asked you. Someone's asking about it. All right, Caleb, I told you like 15 minutes. We went like 25, so I appreciate it, and we'll let Nick sleep in the background there. So talk to you during the week, okay? We'll listen tomorrow. All right, guys, take care. All right, there you go.
Thanks, Caleb.
Caleb Herring. Von Tobel's here. What's up, John? How are you?
I was like an old man. I fell asleep, so I'm here.
Sorry, it happens. 10:30's late. 10:30's late when you actually get up at like 6 in the morning like you do to prep for a 10 a.m. show. So let me we don't have to do much more UNLV because I know the audience wants to hear from Dave and John on college football beyond UNLV and San Diego State and the NFL. I'll say a couple of things. I don't view tomorrow's game as an exhibition. And I know what you meant by it. The Reno game is important. I actually think the San Diego State game is a game they can compete in because I still don't believe that San Diego State's offense is that dynamic. We're going to have to see what they do with their new quarterback. They're talking about opening things up, but talking about it and actually doing it and executing it are two different things. This is a program that relies on their defense. It's freaking awesome. It's a great defense, and there is a chance even with a more wide-open offense on the UNLV side. They do have a lot of weapons. They've got their offensive line back. I'm a little worried about the receivers who aren't there, like Randall Grimes, who Willie Ramirez chimed in and said Grimes might actually be suspended for more games this year. He got suspended for the Reno game last year. I had heard he was out the first game coming into this year. That was at the end of last year. But if you told me that there were some issues and he got suspended more games, I'd believe it. Here's the other thing. If he's suspended for 3 games, then there's a good chance he's going to opt out and he'll just sit out the season and either move on, and that'll be partly his decision, and I'm sure partly the staff's decision. Or what I'd like to see is for him to stay in school and continue to get his education and continue to grow up because he's a really big-time talent, and they're going to miss him. they're going to miss him unless they have unless this freshman that they have in their starting lineup in the depth chart, Kyle Williams, is ready to step up. And I don't know. I don't think there's anyone who's just going to walk in and do what Randall Grimes can do. He's an elite deep threat. He's a guy who has good hands. The other thing that people do not realize that Grimes, at 6'2", 6'3", pushing 6'4", and a glamour guy, is a really good blocker. Like he really dedicates himself to blocking, and that's a big deal. So I don't know if Presley's going to play. I don't know if Presley is back 100%. There may be a chance that he opts out. I think you may see a mix tomorrow. We may not find out officially, but I think there's going to be 3 or 4 opt-outs for the season. I think you could have 4 or 5 guys affected by COVID, whether they have it or it's tracing. That might include some coaches. And then there are some injuries they're dealing with. So, and, here's the other part of it. Dave, as you've been around coaches a lot and you've judged, strategy and information that's out there and depth charts. They may have also been shoveling a load of bull with some of the guys not as part of the depth chart. And, that's part of the game when you don't have to get out the information. So we'll see what UNLV rolls out there with. And I think Oblad should start, but, I don't know exactly what Arroyo's looking for in a quarterback. And maybe Oblad's not even qualified to run what he wants to run. So we'll find out.
Yeah, I don't think San Diego State, despite the fact they're saying they're going to open things up, I'm not sure they will. San Diego State's they've got a character that they developed over the years. They're a defense-first team. They run the football. I don't see that Brady Hoke, who's, that is his program. He had the exodus to Michigan for a while, but he's a San Diego State guy. I go back to the days when he was the head coach previously, and they were still the same type of football team. I don't see much changing, and I don't think it should, because their defense is really, really good. As long as you don't make mistakes on offense, you're probably going to win most of the football games in the Mountain West. That makes them kind of a risky team as a favorite, because they're not a team that is going to blow things up on the scoreboard and put 35s up there, and that can make it tough for them to cover big numbers, which is kind of the way I feel about tomorrow's game. I don't think there's any question the Aztecs are going to win the football game, but 2 touchdowns, a little steep for me to lay. I'm not going to take the Rebels because I really think they're a total unknown quantity at this point, and I just can't back that with money. But I don't want to lay the points here. I can tell you that.
Yeah, on what Caleb said about 2 touchdowns and that the Rebels can compete with anyone in the conference, I think that's mostly true. I actually think they're 2 touchdowns worse than Boise.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of support for Reno. John and I went over the game on air today. He bet Reno. I bet Wyoming. I think Wyoming is right there with Boise. And I actually think Wyoming is 2 touchdowns better than UNLV. Now the caveat is I don't know what Arroyo added in terms of new players and new talents. If he has amongst the freshmen and some JUCOs, like upwards of 5 or 6 guys who would say be in like the top 18 on defense, and they're difference makers, but we're talking 5 or 6, because that's how much help they needed.
Yeah.
If he's got that in some of the freshmen and some of the JUCOs, then maybe the defense can make a big step up. But man, that's a big leap in just one recruiting period. And you're counting on, like, I know people are asking about Brennan Scott, who was a 4-star out of Texas, asking about LaShawn Bell, who was a highly touted guy, 3.5, 4-star guy out of Southern California. Like, if they can play and contribute, and, they can, as freshmen too, if they can do that, then this could be a much improved defense. But that's my biggest worry. They were not good defensively. And the other problem was, once they got past some of the ones and they had a lot of injuries, holy moly, some of the guys who were having to play were just not, up to snuff to compete with teams like Boise, especially.
Yeah.
So tough one. It's going to take a little while.
Hey, Steve, just real quick to add to that, too. I mean, to your point about the defense, like you talk about a step forward. Like, yeah, I would like to see a minuscule step forward. Their best defense gave up 430 yards per game under Sanchez. Like, they never sniffed being just bad, right? They were always terrible. They were never bad. And, like, that was always part of the problem. And I would think today's point, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're much better with this stuff than I am. Like last year with Agnew, I think they even started talking San Diego State about opening it up more and like being like a high tempo offense. Right. And then like we saw this with the Aztecs. But the problem is, even with big numbers, because I would agree with Dave's assessment, the problem is when you face a defense with the lack of talent that gives up 450 yards regularly, like that's always tough. no matter the slow plotting offense that you face.
And that is the danger here, is that the Aztecs are a running team. If UNLV can't stop the run and they start putting together these 14-play drives, the game could get ugly.
Yeah, and I thought they had their moments last year where they slowed down the run. San Diego State didn't go crazy. I think they had 150 on the nose. But, that
was not a great San Diego State team last year, though. That was a kind of a transition year.
Dave, they won every close game. It was like
I know. Yeah, well, Rocky Long, guys, he was a great head coach, in my opinion, at this level. And his going back to New Mexico as the defensive coordinator might be the best assistant hire in the entire country. I had a really good opinion on New Mexico this week. Unfortunately, the game got postponed, and I was all over them, plus the points against Colorado State. I thought it was a game they might actually have a chance to win, and thought that might have been the best bet on the board. Unfortunately, we will never know because they're not game up.
Yeah, take me over. I would say at 50.5, I'd lean towards no, but also, again, like Dave said, when it's opening week in the Mountain West Conference and the Big Ten, you got to tread lightly. And especially in the Mountain West Conference, like half the conference turned over their coaches.
Yeah, oh yeah. There's one game that is apparently getting quite a bit of money, at least in terms of the money that matters, and that's the Hawaii-Fresno State game, where the money's coming in on the Hawaii side. I thought Rolovich was just a dynamite head coach there, and I wonder if they'll be quite the same team without him. I'm going to have to wait and see a game there. The other team that'll be popular tomorrow, Air Force, will probably take most of the money against San Jose State. And I don't disagree with that, but San Jose showed a lot of improvement last year, and if they can continue that upward trend, they might be able to compete here. I would not put – and I was on Air Force against Navy, but I wouldn't put all that much into that Air Force win because Navy sucks, okay? They're really bad this year. And Air Force had that offensive line, just tore their defensive line apart. Not sure it'll be that easy for them tomorrow at San Jose State. That game could be tricky. If I had to bet it, I'd probably take Air Force, but it's not a game that's...
Yeah, what do you guys think of Wisconsin tonight?
Oh, boy. Little payback. Also, I think I made the comment in an email correspondence with some of my clients. I didn't play the game, but Illinois got kind of lucky last year on a few occasions, and I think they're going to regress somewhat this year. I think that's still a really weak Big Ten team, and they looked the part tonight. And Wisconsin might have themselves a young quarterback. I mean, talk about a guy playing his first game. Started off with 17 straight completions. I mean, they weren't the most difficult passes of all time, but I don't care. I don't care what you're throwing. If they're 3-yard passes into the slot, 17 for 17 is pretty good.
Yeah. Well, it's a good story, Dave. I mean, Wisconsin never, it's like a 2-star quarterback, right? It's not like he's a big name recruit. No, the kid's a 4-star. They were waiting for him. And it was funny because I remember last year at the beginning of the year, I mean, just largely expecting that he was going to win the job, and they give it to Cone. And now, to pull a Tony Dungy, right? It was a blessing in disguise that Jack Cone gets injured because I think they have a higher ceiling with a kid like Mertz. As he
I got a feeling Mertz is going to be on the field the entire season.
Yep.
20 of 21, 5 touchdowns. That's pretty good.
What a big deal.
I think Illinois stinks along with about 3 or 4 other teams at the bottom of the Big Ten. So there's going to be some real L stinkers competing in that conference. So nice win for Wisconsin. Let's go down the board a little bit in college football. We hit on some of the games today on radio, but if you missed it, I wanted to get Dave's take. We also didn't hit a lot of games. Dave, where are you on Notre Dame right now? You ripped a shit out of Louisville last week, and for good reason, right? The week before, Louisville's defense is terrible, and then you're watching them against Notre Dame, and the game's under 20.
Notre Dame was very unimpressive. They did leave some points off the board, but they've had a couple of games this year where it's like, geez, what's going on with this offense? I tell you what, you watch the Irish, and they don't have much speed on the outside, so it's going to limit the big plays, and they're kind of a 3 yards in a cloud of dust or dirt or whatever that expression is. That type of team with a good defense. I think they'll have a challenge tomorrow with Pittsburgh, but the tough part for the Panthers is that now Notre Dame has film on the the kid who's starting for Pittsburgh at quarterback because the main guy got hurt. And I don't think Pittsburgh's going to be able to do much offensively in the football game. So it might just be a case that Notre Dame eventually gets there just on the strength of their defense. And Pittsburgh always finds a way. Pittsburgh's got an identity under Narduzzi. They're just good enough to lose a lot of close games. That's just what they're becoming.
And you know what's awesome? Well, he is the guy that John Murray talks about, right? Like he's the model guy, is he not, John? With the kicking is
was it last year, Dave? He had the game. He was down a touchdown and he was on the 1 yard line and he settled for he kicked a field goal with like 3 minutes left or something like that.
Last week against Miami, they're down 12 in the fourth quarter. And I mean, I loved it from my standpoint because I had a middle working in the game.
Right.
And it's like, oh, this is going to give me a real shot to win this. And he kicks a field goal on 4th and 5. It's like, you're down 12, stupid, not 11. So they cut the deficit to 9, and Miami went down and kicked a field goal. And the game landed on 12, which was just beautiful for me. But that's kind of Narduzzi. He inherited some bad traits from D'Antonio, and one of them is extreme conservativeness.
No. By the way, with this one too, I thought because I was a little interested in Pitt if the number got high enough, but the offense last week was so bad. Like some of the numbers for him against Miami, 3.89 yards per play, 300 total yards. The kid yelling, 2 fumbles, 1 lost. Only 6 yards per attempt. Like I believe enough in their defense, Dave, but their offense looks so gross, and Notre Dame is so much better defensively that I couldn't do it.
Yeah, Notre Dame is not going to be a popular side this week because they barely slipped past the Louisville team that's lost 5 games. So, yeah, but if I had to bet the game, I'd take the Irish, to be honest with you. Fortunately, I don't have to bet it. I bet several games tomorrow, but that sure isn't one of them.
What do we do with Miami? 11.5. Check that. 13.5 against Virginia.
Yeah, Virginia's struggling a bit, which it's got a lot to do with the quarterback. I mean, Perkins was never a guy who was going to play at the next level, but he was a heck of a college quarterback because he was a real dual threat. And it has been a big step down at the QB position. And right now they're not very good. I think they'll get better as the season goes along because Bronco's a really good coach. And it might start to show tomorrow. But right now Virginia's kind of a team I don't really want to back. On the flip side of it is Miami still has discipline issues on the field. They take stupid penalties. And this might be a game where they're a little bit on the flat side. It's not, it's just not a huge game for them. It might be one of those games where they just do enough to win.
I don't agree with that. I think the Hurricanes kind of seem like a team that are like, I used this term for the Browns on the show today, Steve, but I think Miami's in there too. They're stuck in purgatory where they're nowhere near the level of Clemson, but they're able to get double-digit wins, and just get by against some of these teams like Pitt, like we just saw the other week, right? Who else we see them beat the crap out of? Bad Florida State team, Louisville, which that win doesn't look as strong anymore, right? Like that's kind of what this Miami team is. Derek King has helped them become a team that can beat up on the bad teams, but are still nowhere near the elite teams in the upper echelon.
No, and they're still not getting the best players in their backyard.
Right.
They're just not.
Is Indiana going to cover against Penn State? Is Indiana going to beat Penn State? They're getting 6.5.
I think Penn State's got a ton of talent. And I would look at Penn State first in the game. I think Indiana's got a nice team, but Penn State's just got better athletes at almost every position. And these are the types of games that Franklin does well in. Franklin's not a real good big game coach, and I don't think that's going to change. I will probably not be betting on Penn State in big games. But this is the type of games his teams usually do well in. Indiana will give them a fight, but I think Penn State eventually gets them.
Wes Reynolds likes the Hoosiers for what's that worth? For what that's worth.
Well, he knows that team pretty well.
All right. I didn't really have a read on this, but I think it was him I was talking to about earlier in the week when we had him on the edge. And I don't want to put words in his mouth. I believe Humans was in that direction as well, but I didn't have anything on Indiana.
You know what? The team that's interesting, Steve, the team that's getting the money and the line's really dropped off. Somebody just posted this. That 13.5 is long gone.
Yeah, baby.
It's down to 11 now. Schiano's going to improve them. And I was, let's say, dubious about Michigan State's hire as their new head coach. I'm not saying Rutgers is – I didn't bet the game. I kind of wish I had at 13.5. That looks like a good number. I wouldn't be surprised if Rutgers gives them a battle tomorrow.
That's what I told him today on the show. I was like, 14 was way too high.
John, why are you laughing?
Well, just like we were talking about the show, I told him too. I was like, your school doesn't look too bad. I think it's an interesting spot. Catching, at least it was, right? Open 14, got down to 13. Mel Tucker, and I'm with Dave. I don't really like the hire that much. He's got a team full of guys he didn't recruit in a weird offseason. Like, I thought it was an interesting number to put that up that high.
Yeah, I thought you were laughing. I thought I told you I already bet Michigan State, and I did bet him at 13.5. So I'm going to have to. Because I figured it would go the other way. I figured there would be all this anti-Rutgers stuff. It would go to like 17 by the time the game was on. I'll just tell you this about Rutgers. Schiano's going to rebuild them. I do truly believe he'll have them in a bowl game. Every other year maybe. I think they can win 7-8 games in some seasons. But this first year, like, he did all he could to bring in dudes. Like, it was weird. He actually got a ton of Big Ten transfers, but most of them are on defense and needed help on defense, but it's on the defensive line. The one thing that he couldn't really add in terms of help was on the offensive line, and their offensive line sucked last year. Like, they could not run the ball. They could not protect the quarterback. So that's my biggest worry. Even though Mel Tucker's got guys that he didn't coach, Michigan State still has Big Ten size and talent. So that's where my worry is. And I think it's getting dangerously low, but we'll see this. We'll see what happens.
Oh, I wouldn't take 11.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't take the worst of it. And 11 is, it's a big difference between 11 and 13.5. But I look, that team was so poorly coached last year. They probably gain a touchdown just because forget Schiano, just because the other guy's not there anymore. They get a touchdown better.
You know what's funny about comments like this? Because it's all recency bias. Steve's not used to this. You do know their first year in the Big Ten, they went 8-5. They actually sent more players to the NFL via the draft than any team in the Big Ten. But the problem was they went to the offseason, and 2 days before the signing period, Schiano took the Buccaneers job, and then they were caught in this weird zone, and they were fucking cheap asses. They made an offer to Mario Cristobal, and he turned him down. So they could have actually had him as the bridge guy before he jumped to the next job. But when Schiano was around, into the other guy, Flood, who coached, and then this guy, Ash, is just an asshole, and you see it at Texas. Their defense sucks. But they actually made bowl games in 9 of 11 years. So it was not a dreadful program as of 5 years ago. It just, it was the perfect storm of suckiness in the Big Ten.
And the nice thing now is that I think Schiano, this is not a stepladder job for him anymore. I think he could stay there for a long time.
Yeah, Aaron joking. I'm only 40. I don't remember in bowl games. They were in 9 of 11. Trust me.
I just love it pops out every once in a while. It wasn't as intense there, but Steve's like Rutgers defense. It goes in really quickly. He's like, actually,
I gave you facts. Well, because what happens is when you turn into a laughing stock, people forget what it was. Yeah. They were never a power. But Schiano actually did a really good job. And I'll mention one more thing. The other thing is, when the Big Ten brought in Maryland and Rutgers, they brought them limping in. They didn't give them the money that all the other schools got. They had a 5-year graduation deal before they got to a full allotment. So the first couple of years are getting $11 million and $14 million as a school. The rest of the conference is getting $45 million. Cool. That's kind of a big disadvantage to overcome. So people are like, why the fuck did they add Rutgers and Maryland? They didn't really have a fair chance coming in. And I'm not saying both schools aren't screwed up, and I've made lots of mistakes, and Loxley's probably a disastrous hire, but that does hurt. Money does make a difference. There you go. That's all I got.
That was a good rant.
Yeah.
I do it every once in a while. I would like to see him win, and I do watch all the games and whatever. I'm a glutton for punishment, as you know, with the goddamn Jets. Is Iowa State better than Oklahoma State? What do we know about Oklahoma State?
Well,
We hear about a high-ranked defense. Jesus, they've played 2 games. Wasn't one of the games Kansas?
Yeah, that was their exhibition game. Sanders is back tomorrow, and that's worth, I'd say, 4 or 5 points. So that's really going to help them. Iowa State, though, this is, we're getting a clear pattern on Iowa State under this coaching staff. they play to the level of their competition.
Yep.
They play down against bad teams, and they play up against good teams. So I think this is going to be a heck of a game tomorrow. It could be one of the best games on the board. But Oklahoma State does have, especially by Big 12 standards, a really good defense. And with Sanders back to run the show on offense, and obviously a very talented running back, I think Oklahoma State might be good enough to win by a touchdown.
Dave, who do you think's defense is better, West Virginia or Oklahoma State?
Well, I can't tell with West Virginia yet because they have, Baylor's offensive line is basically the three of us and two guys we find on the street. That offensive line is just awful for Baylor. And that's the only reason I couldn't take Baylor tomorrow against Texas, by the way, is that offensive line just gets pushed all over the place. Looks like West Virginia might have a pretty good defense, but, we'll find out a little more tomorrow against Texas Tech. I'm not sure about the West Virginia offense, though. The quarterback's he's not very good, and he has a tendency to throw the ball to the wrong uniform. I think West Virginia probably wins tomorrow, but it's risky, even as a 3-point favorite.
Going back to the Big Ten for a second, Snyder 7 was asking about Maryland and Northwestern. When I first saw this number, I'm like, this is ridiculous. There's no way Northwestern should be 11-point favorite over Maryland. Now, a couple of things. Northwestern did add Peyton Ramsey, who was a good quarterback in Indiana. I think Maryland has a lot of talent. I have no idea what they're going to have a quarterback if the younger, bigger Tagovailoa is starting, and Loxley does. He is a suck ass X's and O's coach. But man, when I was at that UNLV Northwestern game last year, and it was a bad year for Northwestern, but I didn't see immense talent out there. And you want to talk about? I'll tell you what. Between watching Vanderbilt up close and Northwestern up close, I mean, those I don't want to hear about Big Ten and SEC. Those teams would have been middle to bottom of the Mountain West Conference. They were some of the worst quarterback teams that I saw the entire season. Just awful.
Oh, horrendous. The Wildcats' offense was just unbelievably bad.
Hunter Johnson was a transfer from Clemson and a highly rated guy when he landed at Clemson. Oh, boy. He was over it. By the way, Brandon Peters, another guy for Illinois. That was a prize recruit for Michigan. Yikes.
Yeah, you're not kidding. I think Northwestern could be quite a bit improved. I'm hoping that Northwestern kind of struggles tomorrow and just barely gets out with a win, and that Iowa finds a way to win at Purdue. Then I'll take Northwestern next week against Iowa, because Iowa's a team I'm looking for spots to play against.
And Northwestern, what has Northwestern been over the last 10 years? They're the team you play when they're a dog, when they're a favorite. Uh-oh.
Yeah, this looks like more of a typical Fitzgerald team. He couldn't do anything last year, but I think this year's team is going to be a pain in the ass for some of the better teams they face. They probably won't win a lot of those games, but they'll make life miserable for the favorites.
Hey, John, I just got a political text. 2 minutes. Actually, 9 minutes ago. 11:11. Come on. Really?
I told Steve that this election, because I feel kind of bad for two reasons. One, because people are just kind of jackasses, and I'm pretty sure at such a contentious election, people who are doing political calls have probably gotten the worst end of it. I also used to be.
Well, here's an idea: stop making political calls. People hate him.
I was actually about to say that I used to be one of those people who were forced to make political calls. Yeah. So I've been answering political calls.
You actually answered.
I've been answering it and talking to people and being nice.
They must love you. Well, I already voted, but they're still texting me and emailing me and calling me. And I'd like to tell them that I'm only allowed to vote once. You simply think there'd be some kind of a setup where you could just send a bulk message.
I voted.
To all of them and say, hey, I already voted, so leave me the fuck alone.
Done.
And they're calling during the World Series. What the hell's wrong with these people? Call in the afternoon when nothing's going on.
They watch us. Look, they survey us, right? Like, they know. Like, if the FBI watches us throughout the day, they should know that Dave Cokin loves baseball and should not call during the World Series, or that he voted. Like, it's all electronic. It takes 2 seconds. You know they can check that and be like, no, guys, don't call him. He already voted.
No, I didn't vote that way. I filled out the ballot at home. It took me like 2 or 3 days to decide who to vote for in all these judges' races. And then I went over to the it figures my nearest drop-off was a senior center. And the place was mobbed, by the way. Absolutely mobbed. But I just walked in and dropped the envelope in the box. See you later. Nice system. I like it.
Let's fire in some more games. I was going to ask about
they were going to politics.
Gophers and Wolverines. So we got Michigan is at 3.5. Yep, 3.5.
Michigan's got more talent, and Minnesota's got a better coach. And I don't know what to do with the game. I'm at power rate Michigan a little bit better, but I don't trust him. I don't know what the issue. I always thought his stock, has anybody's stock dropped more than Harbaugh's in the last couple of years? And this guy was just a phenom. He was a super coach. And now it's like, geez, the Michigan fans want him out of there. And I'm not sure I can blame him for that. And Fleck really does. He gets the most out of his talent. I'm so impressed. If he starts getting real athletes in there at Minnesota, boy, watch out.
Yeah,
John?
I'd rather have Minnesota in this spot, like catching that kind of a number. And to Dave's point too, like Dave, what's been surprising to me, it's not even about like Harbaugh's stock. I brought this up with Steve on the show today. The fact that Joe Milton's going to be his first quarterback that he started at a high school, like he's got no feel for the quarterback position whatsoever. Like his offenses have been kind of shit. Like
yes, they have.
That's been the most surprising thing to me is what he did in the NFL and how it seemed like he was so into like the ingenious behind some of the offenses he ran in the NFL to then what he's doing in college is nuts. Like I don't get how bad his offenses have been, and the fact that he can't figure out quarterback. I read everything about Milton. You've seen things about him. Like I think he's going to be a pretty good option for him. It could be the best one that he's had, but at this point right now, like I'm with you. Like, I kind of like what Minnesota brings to the table more.
Someone was saying, let me find the comment again because I was just looking up the note. Jerry saying they have COVID issues at Minnesota. I know you like Fleck as a coach. I think he's a jack off sometimes.
Well, I didn't say I don't disagree with that. I just think he's a heck of a coach.
Yeah, I just think at times he's one of these guys who want the rules are his and that's just the way it goes. And but yeah, he on Monday he wouldn't tell the number. He says, "I know the number. I'm just not going to tell you the number." I don't want you all to think we have 65 players out right now. That's not what I'm saying. So, whatever.
Well, and again, there's been several examples this year of teams that had a lot of guys out, went out there and played a great game. Virginia Tech was missing like 40 guys in their first game. They win that. The Air Force was missing basically the entire team, and they went out and beat the crap out of Navy. And there's been other teams that have done the complete opposite, who have had problems and didn't show up for games. So that's why, especially with first games like Michigan, Minnesota, I'm just I'll take a back seat and kind of watch the game and see if I can get a feel for them moving forward.
Wyoming and Reno. John and I have opinions on this. We already bet it. Dave, it's Wyoming 3. It went actually it's 2.5 in some spots. It went as high as Wyoming 5.
Yeah, Wyoming. I'm not sure about the offensive line and the defensive line for that matter. It's could be a work in progress, but they've got a great running back, and Chambers is back at quarterback, which is certainly an upgrade over what they had was stuck with last year. I mean, it's tough to say this with this being the opener, but in terms of what I'm hearing, Wolfpack actually might be more interested in next week's game than this week's game.
Uh-oh. Oh,
so I think Wyoming finds a way to get out of there with a win.
Wait, can we talk about the concept for a second? So you think in an 8-game schedule they're looking ahead, like with how?
Well, I know. I was told this, and it's a good source. They're already game planning. They spent the week to some extent game planning for UNLV.
Wow, if that's true, that's ridiculous. Because
they want that cannon back.
Yeah, I mean, but you could also get in a conference in which the title game is determined by win percentage. You know what I mean?
Like, I understand that, but I don't think Nevada's a title contender. So it might be that they're circling the games that are most important. Now, I can tell you this: they were not good against Wyoming last year. I mean, the game it looked competitive, but it wasn't. And Wyoming's a really well coached team.
John, you actually think Reno does have upside to be in the mix for the top of the conference?
Yeah, well, and I think it's just the season in front of us, right? It's 8 games, maybe a couple canceled because of COVID, right? The schedule, everything. It's a massive game here. It's almost an eliminator for the most part between Wyoming and Nevada. like to get maybe a second spot in the Mountain West title game, because again, you're not doing divisions, you're just doing win percentage now. But you have a team that brings like 17 guys back, 10 on offense, you get a quarterback back, essentially your entire offense. And like to me, because Steve and I were talking about this, Dave, I think Wyoming, this is one of the best offenses Craig Ball's had in a while, but their defense, as you alluded to, has a lot of question marks. You lose 2 really good linebackers. Yeah. There is some depth at defensive line, but you lose a couple starters there. All the returning talent is in the secondary for the most part. And that's, to me, that's what's the intriguing part about Reno. And the fact that I got it at 5 at a line that's now 2.5. Like, that's the other
part. That's not bad.
Right. It was 5 this morning at Circa. And so, to me, it was about the number and the fact that usually in a spot like this, as good as I think Wyoming could be, a team that's got this much returning talent in the 4th year of their coach, Norvell, I think it's a pretty good spot to grab 5.
I'm not going to argue that. I think it might be a pretty close game. But if I'm you, I'm middling the game. 5 and 2.5 in a game that looks close. That's pretty good. 2.5 point spread is that's meaningful. Look, the problem for Nevada is the quarterback position. I mean, it was just awful last year, and if it doesn't improve, I don't know.
Another one up on the comment board. Dave, you might be on this one. La Tech 2.5, Texas San Antonio. Anything?
No. La Tech is very unimpressive so far. They have better talent than the Texas San Antonio, but the Roadrunners are actually playing better football. But if Louisiana Tech gets it together, they're just better than UTSA.
Cincy SMU. SMU is 2.5 at home against Cincy.
Well, I like Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati's the better football team. I love their defense. They haven't played in a few weeks, so we'll see if there's rust. Don't turn the ball over. I think SMU's a little overrated. So we'll see, but I did take Cincinnati in the game.
Recency bias. I'm sorry, John. You got anything on it?
Well, I was just going to say, because I bet SMU last week, but when it got down to 6.5, but they're clearly missing. The names escape me, but the wide receiver and the running back who they're missing has clearly hurt them offensively to a certain extent. It's not going to help against Cincy.
No, and honestly, Dykes, I don't know. He's not my favorite coach in big games.
Right.
Either one of you guys want Missouri at home? Is Kentucky? Is this a little recency bias? People overreacting to Kentucky kicking the shit out of Tennessee. Mizzou's at home, getting 3.5.
Yeah, I look. Tennessee is a complete screw up right now. I mean, it's they fired one of the defensive coaches over the weekend. They have no quarterback. Garantano just has no confidence. He's a mess. It's a really good opportunity for Missouri to win a football game here because I think that people are overrating Kentucky coming out of that game and the fact that Kentucky's played some big games recently. And I wonder if they look at Missouri as, it could be a potential flat spot for them.
Well, they don't have anything in the skill positions either. Like, that's my problem with Kentucky. Like, their defense front seven, I think, is awesome. Their offensive line is awesome. Running game's great. But they lack talent at quarterback and wide receiver, which is generally helpful when you want to cover numbers on the road. You got to be able to generate some sort of offense outside of running it, and they haven't been able to do that.
The Oklahoma TCU total.
I don't do totals, but as far as the matchup goes, not your typical TCU team. They can't stop the run, and I mean they just can't stop the run. Now, Oklahoma's not a really good running team, but they should be able to run here, and that will open up passing lanes for them. I think it's a pretty good matchup for Oklahoma. And as far as TCU goes, Duggan's just having to do too much. Duggan, however he pronounces it. Kid's a really good player, but he's their best running back and he's their best quarterback, and you got to have more balance than they've shown so far. Patterson's been a great coach for a long time, but you just wonder if maybe he's been there so long it's just starting to get dull. Because TCU they're still a good program, but they're kind of not at the level they were, and I'm not sure they're going to get back to that level. I'm not saying they got to fire Patterson. I mean, this guy's still a good football coach, but it's just it seems like they plateaued. And now they're just kind of one of those in the mix Big 12 teams that'll pull a couple upsets a year, but they're just kind of okay.
Last one. Oh, Ohio State minus 27 against Nebraska. You actually think Nebraska can compete, right, Dave?
Yeah, hopefully they don't get run out eventually in the game. But I think Nebraska's got a chance to be the best 4-4 team in the country because they're probably going to lose 4 games, but they've got talent. They're getting better, and unfortunately, their schedule is just miserable, and they might get crushed here. But I think their defense might be good enough, especially with Ohio State. Maybe not all that sharp in the first game, that they might be able to stay within that number. But they basically don't have much chance to win the game, and that becomes worrisome. That's why I don't generally take plus 27 or whatever, because it means the team's going to get blown out, and they might give up in the second half.
It's a tough break for Nebraska. Tough break. Just a scheduling quirk. It's a tough break. It's not like the Big Ten was trying to stick it to them for trying to. No. Tough break. It happens. It happens. Question for you. What's your reaction to UNLV? John, you can start. What's your reaction to UNLV now getting clearance to have 2,000 fans, but they are charging tickets starting at $110 against Reno in this first home game? I saw, a lot of people reacted today. They're like,
they should charge more. I'll tell you why in a minute. I'll tell you why after John answers why they should have charged more.
Well, I said it's $110, and of course, there's a stupid joke where people are like, "Well, they're 2,000. They're not even going to get that. They'll get 2,000."
Oh yeah, they will.
Oh yeah, and that's Dave. I think this is maybe going to be what you're alluding to here. You're not parking on dirt lots. You're not going out to the Silver Bowl anymore. Like you're experiencing you're only watching a football game, but you're experiencing Allegiant Stadium. Like that's the big deal. Only 2,000 people are going to be able to get into the building. It's a state of the art facility. That's why. Like it's limited capacity, and I don't know, man. I could be wrong. I get it. We're in the middle of a pandemic. But I didn't think 110 was that bad, given everything and what you were looking at in terms of exploring a facility that I think is the attraction at this point right now.
$110 for a ticket for the first ever game in Allegiant Stadium, and there's only going to be 2,000 of them, which makes it a limited edition. This is an eBay monster down the road. I'm telling you, this ticket will be worth $1,000 for sale and down the road, especially if you can get it signed or something. I don't know how that stuff works. But if there's only 2,000 of them, I mean, it's going to be a collector's. It really is going to be a collector's item.
Do you think there's paper tickets? That's part.
You got to get a hard copy of the ticket. You have to. They have to have them, right?
Yeah.
Does it go up or down if you get Marcus Arroyo to sign it in terms of the worth?
Depends how he does as a head coach, I guess.
Aaron says they could have charged 110 for 5,000 to 8,000 tickets. I agree. I saw some smartasses on Twitter, making comments, and it's like, why would UNLV do this? Do you realize if they comp 500 of the tickets and they get, say, an average of 150 for 1,500, it's $225 fucking $1,000. Actually do the math. They need the money, and if you can get it, go get it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, they'll get the 2,000, and there'll probably be a handful more of people who find a way to get in. I don't even know how that works, but there'll probably be 2,500, 3,000 people at the game. And, it's got to be really cool to be at the first event in Allegiant where fans are allowed.
Let's transition to NFL and NFL Sunday. There's so much hype around Derek Stevens and Circa opening up. And we had a question earlier from Aaron saying, who's locking in a seat at Circa for an upcoming football day? For the first 3 weekends that the Circa has that sports book open, you charge, right, for seats? And if you don't, or you have to spend a certain amount. Why? Would you be mad if Derek Stevens was like, yeah, you know what? It's minimum $200 tab per seat.
No,
John, what do you think?
It would make financial sense, and it's going to be, again, it's all about demand. It's pretty much going to be in high demand. Why not? You're right. You know what I mean? Why not get something out of it? And I think that's a little bit different, Steve. I mean, it just kind of generally goes with the vibe of Las Vegas. There are certain spots where, you can't get a table or anything like that unless you're spending a minimum amount of money. It would make sense in a brand new casino with a sports book like that in a venue like that you would, without, for lack of a better term, be charged for your spot there, not just walk in and be like, hey, there's an open seat. Let me go sit down,
and not spend any money all day.
I'll get a $5 hot dog.
I'm never coming back here again. Good.
Yeah, really. Oh, it's going to be tremendous. That's going to be I mean, it's always fun to watch the games with big crowds and all the different casinos, but this is going to be something special down at Circa.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say at Circa, you're not going to get the stupid folded sheet of betting numbers with "taken" written in pencil and just put down on top of the fucking seat. The most annoying fucking move in sportsbook history. That or leaning the chair up against the counter so that you can't take it while you go run.
Oh, I love that. Yeah,
Rubios or whatever bullshit you're going to get.
Yeah. So funny. The sportsbook crowd. And now they've matriculated to Twitter, so you have to see all this nonsense from some of these morons who inhabit the sports books. Let's hit a couple NFL games, and then we'll cut off tonight on a Friday night. But I do want to hit the big story of the day. You hear or you read Aaron here saying he's happy as a Seahawks fan they didn't get Antonio Brown. What do you think, Dave? Antonio Brown to the Buccaneers?
I think there's the potential that he could be a massive disruption and could be out of there in 2 weeks. Wouldn't shock me. I don't want him. I know the guy's got great talent, but his track record for screwing up locker rooms it outweighs his usefulness to me. And I don't think Tampa needs another. To be honest with you, does Tampa need another receiver?
No.
Well, I mean, they're a little banged up at tight. I can kind of understand wanting it, right? Like they're a little banged up at tight end. You lost O.J. Howard. Gronk, he got a touchdown the other day, but he's not the same. Like they're a little banged up at wide receiver. I can understand wanting him. Like, at least in terms of the acquisition. I'm going to, like, this is the scale, right? Like, this is how extreme it is. This is getting kicked off the team in 2 days. This is like having the best offense and going to the Super Bowl. I know my hands aren't that far apart, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, those are the two extremes with Antonio Brown. So, like, in the end of the day, Dave, if you somehow get good-behaved Antonio Brown, which seems to be very rare, like, the potential is very high. And I didn't see the update, Steve. Do we have any updates on how much you're paying him? Because, like, you didn't trade for him. I'd assume he'd be pretty cheap. Like, I feel like the risk is worth what potentially the reward could be.
I didn't see any terms yet.
I didn't either.
No.
Look, I'm one who's always believed that if the talent is undeniable. He's one of the greatest receivers who's ever played the game. But I don't know. Those cameras go on. And they're going to be all over the place, pandemic or not. I mean, it's going to be a circus. Maybe that's the one thing that works here is that it won't be as much of a circus as it usually is because of COVID, and that might actually calm him down. But he's also, I'd have it in his contract that you must stay off social media.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm dead serious on that.
I don't know what the NFL PA would say about it, but it would be in my contract. I would say, hey, you have a max amount of Instagram posts a week, and it literally it's 3, and that might be too nice. Could you outright ban him from Instagram? I'm not sure, but there should be a limit because that's what gets him in the most trouble. He can't put down that goddamn phone.
That's a problem for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's true.
Well, and that's why I laughed. I laughed at the legitimacy of needing a clause in his contract that says that you can't be on social media too much, man.
Hey.
I think it's part of what life is like. And listen, we know that there's some big companies out there who do specifically have that in their employment contracts. And if you violate it, particularly if you say something that might be a bit controversial, you're out of a job. It's as simple as that.
And Dave's right. It's everybody. Like, imagine working for, and, Dave's far enough along now that Dave's not looking for a radio job in the future. But, Dave, if you were in the middle of your career, right, and say you were, I'll just give you an example, constantly just pissing and moaning about the station you work at, right? Whatever it is, it's equipment, it's coworkers, it's this, it's that. And then you get fired. You don't think the next radio position or the next radio spot you're up for is just going to scroll through your tweets and go, this dumb motherfucker, I don't want him in here. He's going to do the same thing here. And
exactly.
It's that, Antonio Brown is a rare talent. We're talking whatever it is, 1,700 people in the world can play in the NFL right now, whatever it is. You go upwards of 2,000. He's one of 50 guys in the world who can play his position. So, yeah, he's going to have a lot more leeway. But many people fall victim to being out of control and not being able to, take down their emotions when they go to social media.
And he's certainly at the top of the list.
Yep. Stupid.
So what do I know? I'm not a general manager. I wouldn't sign him, but that doesn't mean he's not going to turn out to be great for them.
I was going to say I might if I was completely desperate at receiver. Like my pitch this week was the Eagles. If he checks out with the Eagles, like I'd bring him into the Eagles. If you're a team that, and listen, the Eagles are not a great team, but if you're a team that thinks they can make the playoff, you're a team of now, and you're really thin at receiver, yeah, then roll the dice.
Well, and I liked Brady brings it up too in the chat. Like in March and January, Arians he's a diva. It's not a match. He doesn't fit in this locker room. Like, I wonder how their personalities go together because, like that's the other interesting part about this. I mean, he was calling Tom Brady like to the carpet, like in the first 2 weeks of the season, right? About his quarterback play to the media. Can you imagine if AB has like a big drop or a fumble and he comes in, he's like, we're busy tweeting, but we can't hold on to the football on Sundays. Like, what's that going to go over like?
By the way, Carvelli with a good comment. He says, laugh out loud. Steve, you complain about the equipment at your studio all the time. Where do I complain, John? Where do I complain? On the air. And guess what happens to most of the stuff on the air? It disappears into the ether. Because
LVSportsNetwork.com, where you can listen to every single second of the Steve Cofield.
To my point, though, would a program director down the road go through all of your archives listening? Probably not. Twitter is the place of record. Facebook is the place of record. That doesn't go away. And it doesn't take much effort to go back. We see it. We see it with the NFL draft every year, right, John?
Mm-hmm.
A kid gets drafted, and like within a half an hour, they're like, "Oh, he dropping N-bombs back then, calling, using a homophobic slur." If you write stuff, that's where you're effed. You are totally effed. So, But yes, I do complain, but I complain on the air. So, unless you're marking it at home, I don't think you're going to find it.
And besides which, if you're complaining about equipment, that's different than complaining about management or coworkers or something like that.
Yeah. Brady says, future PD looking at January 4, 2012 show, 2-minute 22 mark, Cofield. Oh, boy. No comment on this one, John. How much of the ruckus at VEASAN has affected the booking of guests on your show?
No.
Why would it affect? No comment. Why would it wouldn't affect it?
Right. Well, and this was also pretty widely publicized, so it wouldn't be not talking about something everybody didn't see. The effect is that the Westgate guys don't want to come on. That's it. And they may have taken me off the mailing list for all the odds that they send out to the media. So we have to talk to John Murray about that one.
I missed it. Jeez,
we can't even do this, dude.
It's like I got no clue what happened.
No, you're so lucky you're out of the fray. It's typical. It's like the next level of tout and sports gambling expert pettiness. Dave. The touts go at each other. The sports experts, there's some of them who are like, fuck the sports books. They're the enemy. They're always trying to screw me and you. And that there was a case of that on VEASAN where Gil Alexander went after the Westgate, didn't offer the Westgate a chance to come on and just talk about the situation. So,
okay. Now I know what it is. I'd forgotten about it.
Now it's blown up. So good luck.
Well, I've said this before and I will say it again. And I think it's really good advice for anybody who's in the business of being behind a microphone or having their byline in the paper. Lee Pete taught me this very first week I was on the air with him in 1987. Never say anything bad about the hotels, even if it's the Boardwalk Buffet, which was legendarily awful. I can say it now because they're not in existence anymore. But it was just awful. But you don't say it because first you can burn bridges, and it's also an industry where people move around from place to place on a regular basis. And if they hate you at one place, they will take that hate with you to another place. So, if you don't think much of a sports book, you don't have to be complimentary to them on the air. But you're best off not to say anything negative about them because those comments will stay with you forever. And if you think that's being a pussy, okay. All I know is I worked in this industry on the media side for over 30 years. And the only reason I'm not doing it now is because I don't want to anymore. I'm getting up there, and I just
But you
I
have
don't
no.
want it anymore.
I've never ever had a sportsbook person say, "Hey, Cokin's an asshole." This is a conversation John and I had off the air, and I'll mention it on here. Dave nailed one of the things. First of all, all the sportsbook guys know each other. They've all worked with each other, worked for each other, worked next to each other. So like they talk about the pain, the pain in the asses out there. So your name is not just mud with the person you're going after. Other people are like, what the fuck? And the other one is there are acquisitions in town all the time. So like when you're fuck William Hill. Yeah, you know what? William Hill might just buy the place that you're housed at in 6 months. We're seeing it, right? Well, I mean, what's to say that Michael Gaughan's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to get out for 6 months and look for some value in a year and a half. Here you go, William Hill. Take over the book. And then William Hill's like, oh, okay. It's happened. We saw it with Michael Gaughan. At one point, owned freaking 9 casinos. Had the Orleans, had the South Coast at the time, and he got a good price from Boyd. He got out, and then he's like, you know what? Let me do the thing down at South Point. This stuff changes. This is a small town, even as it's
you're not kidding.
2.5 million. It's a small town, and the other thing is, a lot of the money here is involved in everything. The money people own a piece of freaking everything.
Yeah, there's such a thing as being politically intelligent, and I'm not telling anybody else what to do. All I'm telling you is that I've seen people who were really rolling along in their careers and getting really good visibility, and then they started insulting the wrong people, and it killed their careers. Literally killed their careers. They had to leave town. They couldn't get a job. So, be careful of what you say.
Some NFL spots. Let's bang out a couple NFL spots, and then we'll wrap it up tonight.
Okay.
All right, Dave, what do we do here? Because, I'll just say this. You know what? I don't like to bash people, but there are people, when I see them making picks, John, specifically, the case here.
Me?
No, not you. When I see certain newbies to the sports gambling biz or the whole picks angle, I get a little bit worried, and our boy Jason McIntyre is unlike everything I like this week. It's scaring the fuck out of me. Now I may still play it, but he's on the Steelers, he's on the Packers, he's on the Seahawks.
Thank goodness he's not on any of my games. Cool.
Is there a game there that I need to bail on? Because you got 2 3.5s, which is a ridiculous number. I should not be laying 3.5 with the Seahawks against Zona, with Packers against Houston, and then now the Steelers have gone from small favorite to small dog.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Tennessee maybe not getting the respect they deserve at this point. I mean, this looks like a pretty good football team. And Vrabel he's become like Kevin Cash in terms of the NFL version. I mean, every button he pushes is the right button. I don't think they're the most talented team in the world, but the Rays are in the World Series. Thanks to Kevin Cash, and the Titans are unbeaten, and I think it's really thanks to Mike Vrabel. He did a couple of things last week that were like, wow, that was unbelievably smart. And I can't exactly pick up. One of them was.
Are you talking about the play last week where he sent a guy on a 12th man defensively?
Yes. That was the play. He did it on purpose.
Yep.
It's like, we take a penalty here. This is going to. I mean, it was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
The best part is there's 2 parts of it. One, his player looking at him like, are you fucking insane? Like, there's 11 guys out there. Don't send me out there. And he's like, it's fine. Just go out there. And then once they call the penalty, him fake going like, God damn it. Like, what are we doing? God, the field. It was so good.
Probably won the game for him and cost me a goddamn bet.
Right.
I had the Texans plus 3.5. That was my worst beat of the football season. Thank you. I'm not going against them. They're the favorite now, so I don't really want them. And I am impressed with what the Steelers are doing. I mean, they just destroyed the Browns last week.
Right.
But
are the Packers a bit phony? They're laying 3.5 at the Texans. We know the Texans have just had a rough season. As win total is dreadful. ATS is also dreadful.
That's a really demoralizing loss, and I don't know how they react to it. Especially with the coaching staff is Romeo Cornell is not a candidate to be the full-time head coach. It means they're going to have a lot of the assistants are going to be looking for work next year. It's the kind of loss that could really the season's bad anyway, and it could get worse. This would not be a week where I want to be on Houston. I'm not saying run and take the other side, but a bad team coming off a loss like that can be really demoralizing because they had the game won.
Oh,
and by the way, the interim coaching staff probably cost them the game.
Which one was that? Are you referring to the Texans game?
Yeah.
No, the decision not to go for 2 or to not to kick the extra point.
He kicked the extra point there.
Yeah, I don't know.
You just do. You just do, and they missed another extra point. Mm-hmm. But it's just you start. I hate chasing points. There's times when it's like this is a good idea. Let's go for 2. But to me, that was a chasing points thing, and it's like, dude, get the game where you can't do worse than going to overtime. And as it turned out, it went to overtime anyway, and then they lost the game. But I thought in that situation, they probably should have just taken the extra point. What do I know?
So I think that, Steve, like Green Bay and Tennessee are actually kind of oddly similar in that both of their offenses, I think, are absolutely legitimate. Like Aaron Rodgers is playing extremely well. The offense seems to be working very well for them. Same thing with the Tennessee Titans. Ryan Tannehill, by the way, stop with the Derrick Henry MVP stuff. If anybody's MVP on that team, it's Ryan Tannehill. He's played absolutely phenomenal. Well,
I don't know.
Derrick Henry was averaging 3.7 yards per carry before the Texans game. Like, he had a really good game. He's not an MVP.
Uh-oh.
He's the guy who scares everybody, though.
I mean, well, when you're getting chucked 10 yards like Josh Norman did that night against Buffalo,
he's awfully good.
Well, he's good, Dave. To me, it's just always been incredible. Like, you go back to last year, right? If you ask people last year, like, who was the best running back last season? Everyone's like, Derrick Henry was incredible. He had one 100-yard game in the first 9 games of the season, and it was exactly 100 yards. He had a 6-game run that was absolutely unbelievable. And that's where my frustration comes from. So I think it's personal because I'm like, he's a really good running back. He's also sometimes extremely inefficient, and you have to take.
Hey, look, I'm not knocking Tannehill either because the guy's he's come into his own and has become a really good NFL quarterback.
Yep. No, and Derrick Henry's impressive. With that size, to have that much speed is absolutely nuts. But anyway, so my main point here was both offenses I really believe in. Both defenses I don't. Both defenses are 20 or lower. I think one of our viewers put it in the comments. If you look at some of the defensive efficiency numbers, Titans are 22nd in the NFL. Like, I'm waiting for a spot to go against them. I think this might be the case here against Pittsburgh. Like, I think they're a good team. I think they're a playoff team. But I think at some point you got to play defense. And if you're 22nd against a offense like the Steelers that has the ceiling that they do, to me, it's not the greatest spot for you. And like, we're talking about one possession games with the Broncos, the Jaguars, the Vikings. Like at some point, right, when you face a good team, like that's going to come crashing back down. I think that's the weekend for the Titans.
All right.
End scene.
Yes.
What do we do with the Raiders? We talked about this game this afternoon. Yeah. I mean, the offense, I said, I loved this spot for the Raiders. Loved it. But the offensive line issue is a problem. And so is, and look, I'll just call it straight. There are, let's just say, rumors flying around town that more than a few Raiders have been visiting the casinos and gambling at rather high levels. Better rein in the team because this is the disease that can break up a team in Las Vegas. These players start falling victim to the attractions that are out there. They can lose their focus in a hurry, and besides which, it's not a real good time to be hanging around. It's just, obviously, we're not going to get to the obvious stuff, but that's the rumor that's out there, and it comes from good sources, and I'm not going to say who they are or name any players, but let's just say if you want to get an autograph, there's a good chance you can get one if you hang around the Cosmopolitan.
So that's good. So I'm curious, Dave. Do you think
what's that animal doing in the background there?
That's going crazy.
That's my cat, Figaro. Figs.
Come over here. Leave him alone. He's having.
So I was going to ask you, so Dave, I agree with the general premise that eventually that becomes a negative. But I think this season's been relatively positive for the Raiders. Do you think it's going to affect them though, down in the long term with guys playing?
I don't like hearing that stuff.
Yeah,
I don't like hearing that. That stuff can impact the team. Stay home, okay? Stay home. Wait till the off season. You can do whatever you want in the off season, but right now, focus on football, boys. It's as simple as that.
I will say, I haven't looked since I fell asleep for a while. Is there still a couple fours out there? Because reading between the lines, it sounds like 4 of the offensive linemen are going to be there, and if that's the case, it's not going to be 4.
No, it'll come back down.
Right. So I mean, if that's the case, then I'm grabbing 4.
It's a great spot for them because Tampa's coming off the big game, and that was a big game. That was a marquee matchup last week, and now they're traveling out here. Listen, the Raiders are pretty good, okay? And they're rested, confident. I mean, I didn't believe me. If anybody thought I was trying to slam the Raiders just now, I'm not. I'm impressed with what they've done so far. This is a pretty good-looking football team, and I want them to maintain their focus because they might make the playoffs, which would be a heck of an accomplishment because not a lot of people picked this team to be a playoff team. I think the popular thought was, well, if they can get to 8 wins, it'll be a heck of a season. I think 8 wins is short now. I mean, this is a team that might be able to win 10 games, and it's really exciting. So I'm hoping that the emphasis is, get tunnel vision, guys. Focus strictly on football. You get a chance to accomplish some great things.
My God, I will be so mad later in the season if the Jets beat the Raiders. So fucking mad.
Well, that would screw up your potential.
That's my point.
Does Trevor Lawrence? What happens if Trevor Lawrence says? Does Trevor Lawrence? Well, no, wait a minute. I'm not saying he's going to stay in college. But what if he pulls a Peyton Manning? Peyton Manning.
Okay.
Well, I should finish that sentence. He's not playing for the Jets, is what I'm saying, Dave. He doesn't want to play for the Jets.
What? So you think he will pull a Peyton Manning?
I mean, I don't know. I think if Gase is still there, and Steve, I know you get defensive by your team.
Going to be there. Right. He's not going to be there. He's in place now to complete the tank. No, the Jets are in fine position here. If Lawrence doesn't want to play there, they can move Lawrence probably for 3 first-round picks. There's a chance, Dave, that they can move down, sort of like the Chargers did, right? And the Chargers. I know people want to rip on Phillip Rivers, but he was an above-average.
No, he was a good quarterback for a long time. Yep.
If the Jets have to move down to 4 and settle for Justin Fields,
right?
Okay. And if they get 2 other first-round picks with it, and if they're smart, they really shouldn't be playing Darnold much more. If Darnold has his value preserved, then they can probably get a 3rd, maybe as high as a late 2nd for Darnold. So they're in the driver's. As long as they don't win games, they're in the driver's seat.
Yeah, and by the way, if I were an advisor to Trevor Lawrence, I'd say it's New York, buddy. You win there, you're the king of the world.
Right.
It's still New York.
And it's not going to be Gase, and I trust that the new GM will hire a good coach. And
well, that part I'd be a little dicey on, given the Jets' management history.
Didn't Adam Gase hire the general manager?
Well, the other what's that?
Yeah.
Didn't Adam Gase hire their general manager?
No, but he's cool with him. But Douglas is going to have no choice because I would assume the Johnsons are morons. Well, they're not morons; they're rich morons. But I assume they're gonna they see what's going on here. Adam Gase is not a head coach, so
I think they're gonna try and get Mike Ditka out of retirement.
You know what's funny, Brady? I hope not. If you were a fly on the wall in the studio on Tuesday, I actually started talking to Candy. I'm like, let's go, James Morgan era, bring it on, baby. Let's do it.
Why not?
And freaking sign Terrell Pryor or who? Why am I blanking on the freaking Notre Dame quarterback who was just with the Raiders? Who's the guy who was with the Packers and was the Browns first-round pick? It totally went out of my head.
Quinn?
No. He's a more recent guy.
Deshaun Kaiser.
Yeah. Sign Kaiser, whoever. Those are the guys you bring in. They can play the rest of the season.
John Kitna. That's a good one.
Yeah, exactly.
Carrie Collins, the year that the Peyton Manning had that neck thing, and then 2 weeks before the season, the Colts were like, let's bring in Carrie Collins. That'll help the season.
Carrie Collins is a guy I got wrong. I thought coming out of college, he's going to be a good one. I don't get them all right, that's for sure. I thought Carrie Collins was going to be a star.
Unless Trevor Lawrence has a specific destination, I guarantee you the Jets are getting 3 first-round picks for Lawrence. Their guys are getting traded now. They got 2 first-round picks for Jamal Adams.
Yeah. He's the best prospect since whatever you want to say. Whether it's Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, whatever. Like, NFL teams will do whatever it takes if it's available to get up to number 1 to get Trevor Lawrence.
Yep.
Yeah, he's that. I mean, on paper, he's that good.
Yep. But my dream scenario is I wish Noodle Arm Rivers would start to suck more, because I think Justin Fields with Frank Reich and the Colts would be a dream. I don't think they're going to be in a position to get it, but I would love if the Colts were to get Justin Fields.
The problem is, if he sucks more, then they'll probably have to go to Brissett, and then they'll do well with him, because he's a good game manager and doesn't make the mistakes that Rivers makes.
Yeah.
Rivers looks like he's 100 years old.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's pathetic.
I mean, he looked better against the Bengals, but it's one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Like, I saw a lot of he's fine. Like, the Bengals are awful. Drew
Brees can get away with having lost some of the velocity because he's just one of the best ever. Rivers has clearly lost something in terms of the zip on the ball, and he's just not good enough he's making throws. That out pass he threw 2 weeks ago is literally the worst pass I've seen all year in the NFL. I mean, as soon as it left his hand, that's a pick six. And sure it was. I mean, he just can't get the ball there anymore. He's lost his fastball. He's thrown it like Jared Weaver.
He also, his mechanics now are so bad. He throws from such weird positions that he's setting himself up. When you have less zip and you're not fundamentally sound, it's a freaking disaster.
He's a shot putter. Like, it's just like this weird, like pushing motion.
And he's got no mobility.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I made the crack about they'd be better off with Joan Rivers at quarterback, and the thing was that despite the fact she's dead, they have basically the same mobility.
Yep. There was a play against the Bengals. That was a good one. I don't want to step on it. That was solid. There was a play against the Bengals, though, Dave, where he the pocket breaks to his right, and he's got 13 yards of clear field in front of him. He barely gets back to the line of scrimmage because he's so slow, and guys can close in on him. It was pathetic. Oh, man, whatever.
Is this was he a Hall of Famer, and how much is this horrible season that he's having, which is not going to get better? How much does that hurt his chances? Because I think he's a borderline guy, and I think this is actually going to hurt him.
I think he'll get in. I think voters tend to forget the change team years where, you're clearly trying to hold on to something that's not there. Like, I think he'll get in. I don't know if he's well deserving of it, but I think he'll be.
I don't think he ever gets in, but I also believe he's a much better quarterback for his career than Eli Manning, and that just shows you how much winning matters. Eli Manning's not a Hall of Famer, but he'll probably make it.
No, I completely agree with that.
Right.
I think Eli Manning and Rivers, to me, are in the Hall of Very Good, but that's as far as it goes. And I agree that Rivers is actually, if you're asking me who I think was the better quarterback in his prime, I definitely say Rivers.
Yep. All right, guys, good week. This will be up on podcast. Please like our podcast on Spotify and iTunes and wherever the hell. So it's on all the big platforms. Like, subscribe. Also, the video runs on Twitch and YouTube, especially on YouTube. If you like and subscribe, that helps us a lot. So we will see you next week. I hope everyone wins. I hope we gave out some winning picks. Dave, have a good weekend. John, you too. You can hear John on Sunday with the Sunday football preview show starting up at 8:00, and I think John Murray will show up to talk to him. But that's something to look forward to. Maybe John just no-shows him. Who knows?